Recording. Hi, everybody. Now this is your official welcome to this week's Facebook Live. We are with Tiara International, which is a leadership development organization that specifically focuses on women's leadership development, but we also have clients of all ages, industries, genders, etc., that we do coach in companies and individually. So if you want to know more about us, you can check us out at tiaraleadership.com. And if you want to know when we are going live, which is usually Friday around noonish Central Time, you can follow our Facebook page or our YouTube channel to get the recording. So with all that said, I'm Betsy Sobiech. I am coming to you from Chicago, and with me today is Andrea Henning, who is from the Netherlands.
Yes, I'm here, and it's only the two of us, but that's great. Great to have a little bit of an intimate conversation and time together.
I know, it is fun. And then you sent an email this morning that I actually have barely glanced at because I was doing other things. You were talking about how you ran across, was it an article or a newsletter or something about the Muse? And so I'd love for you to share what it was that you discovered and just talk about this concept of being connected to your inner muse, because in this day and age, you know, we're bombarded with so much information. There's so much on our to-do list, our calendars. There's so many opinions out there about what you should be doing, what your goal should be. Like any kind of reminder I can get of how do I connect to my own inner wisdom, my own sense of self as I navigate the day to day is just something I feel like I'm always longing for. And so, like I said, I did a cursory look at what you sent. I kind of had that vibe, so I just wanted to hear more.
Yeah. So first of all, it was a little article that is sent out by an app on Facebook that's called Daily Om, and I know a lot of people who are subscribed to that. And it was about embracing your muse, and it started with saying nearly all creative possibilities are related to the muses that inspire us. And actually me reading this and sending it to you was in the realm already of this 100 Day of Joy that we are, this game that we are in, and our invitation for these next 10 days to shift focus. And yesterday I had really a challenging, pretty energy draining day. And I deliberately chose to not go there, but be inspired. So that came along. And what struck me with this, I mean, most people probably know what a muse is, about artists, and that women have been muses to artists. But looking at it in a way like we approach our source of inspiration, and looking at some of the questions that they asked about how to get in touch with your muse that were exactly the same that we use, that was pretty inspiring. And of course then I took really an hour and go back to, what really inspires me, but then just slightly thinking it through differently from this new perspective of what could be my muse. So I amused myself this morning with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you said a lot of things in there. So first of all, Daily Om, we can put a link below about Daily Om if someone is not already connected to that.
Mm-hmm.
With Tiara, we do a lot of virtual programming. We usually have a different thing we do each month. And last month we did a virtual workshop on how to create a 100-day Enjoy Life Now plan that was really focused on being joyful. So like you said, we're in the 10-day period where we're talking about how do you shift your focus to something that brings you joy. Mm-hmm. And Daily Om is a great way to do that. Getting connected to these kind of articles is a great way to do that. So I'll also share something about that in the comments below for sure. And then you're talking about our own sense of inspiration, which is something that we practice from the very beginning of Tiara, is what questions do we ask ourselves so that we can inspire ourselves, that we can motivate ourselves, that we can feel like we are lit up and on fire. And it is really a challenge to keep doing that. What questions did they ask that were the same as the ones that we asked? Like, what were the things that struck you?
the things about what are you passionate about, people, role models, people who inspire you, all these kinds of questions. What moves you? What is good about what's good in the world? So all these kind of questions. It was as if I was looking at a list. It was a little longer. I don't have them all with me, but it just struck me that actually what they're talking about is what we call our source of inspiration, and also with our the three queens metaphor, that our true queen, and maybe you can explain a little bit about that too, is actually our muse. So that was my catch of the day. Like I thought, oh, my true queen is actually my muse. So that was really nice.
Yeah, we've worked with the queens for a long time. And so we work with three queens. Some people who listen to this, you may work with different sorts of archetypes in leadership development, or there are some people that do different types of dialogues or things like that with like multiple parts of themselves as they grow in their awareness of who they are as a leader. So there's lots of different frameworks that have you get in touch with different parts of yourself as part of increasing your awareness, understanding yourself, and growing and developing. What we've done is we've worked specifically with the three, we call them the three queens, so that people feel like they can develop a relationship with basically these three patterns that sort of show up in their lives. The dark queen is the pattern that shows up when usually we're afraid or anxious. So it's built on a very young conversation about how we need to protect ourselves, what we're afraid of, or we're afraid of about ourselves. Which is very normal. Like as humans, we definitely have that side of ourselves growing up that feels wary or afraid or defensive. And then the clever queen is our second queen that we work with. And with her, we really talk about then how, based on basically your fears or your dark queen pattern, how have you tried to overcome that? How have you proved to yourself and the world that you're successful? What kind of face or persona do you put on in order to not really have the dark queen running the show all the time? And a lot of times in leadership development, it's stopped there. It's like, what are you afraid of, and how do you fake it till you make it? What are you anxious about, and how do you put on a brave face or whatever? And there's some real powerful growth and learning and strength just in that loop. Yet we bring in the true queen, which, like what you're saying, Andrea, is this set of questions about if you don't have to worry about that loop, if you can set it aside and still respect it and honor it because it's part of who you are, what is just true about you and the world that takes less effort, that's based on your inner knowing, that's uniquely you. And so we do ask questions like we ask, what do you love about being alive? What are you passionate about and inspires you? When were you moved, and what was the last thing that moved you, and why? Even the whole thing about what breaks your heart and what does that mean about what you love and hold dear. And I love the one about what do you believe to be good about the world, you know, and then as you inquire into those, there's another just sort of belief system that emerges that came just from you that then can really be your source of true inspiration. And then you can have a dialogue with that true queen. What you're saying is that true queen is like your muse when it comes to what's next in terms of my life, or how do I want to approach the situation, or how do I want to be in this meeting or in this family situation. And it comes from that place of the true queen or the inner muse, as opposed to this like kind of other pattern of what are you afraid of and what are you trying to prove, which is kind of a downward spiral energetically. Not bad. Like one of the things we really say, like I just want to emphasize, is you're never going to be rid of like some of the dark queen dialogue, inner dialogue, or the clever queen success formula. So you want to embrace and accept all those components, yet you want to be able to tune into this inner muse or this true queen like more and more and more as you're strategically leading your life.
Exactly. And then also showing up from that place. And that is kind of the secret sauce, because for a lot of people who come in touch with that for the first time, it is really a big aha that inspiration is not something that is outside of them, but it's something is outside of them that resonates with something inside of them. So actually it's inside of you. Huh?
Yeah.
And for me today, for instance, when I look back, when what one of my first muses actually was the lessons at elementary school about the Old Testament, a lot more than the New Testament. Yeah. And now while thinking about it, what did I find so inspirational about it was the magic of life. It was all the things about Abraham and everything, all these Old Testament stories, they are great stories.
Yeah.
And it touches me in the magic and the mythical. And actually this is part of my true queen. It is the magic of life and the appreciation of the magic and the synchronicity. And yeah, so I thought, of course.
Yeah, I love that you just said that. So where my mind went was like an additional inquiry, which is what books and stories moved you the most when you were a kid?
Yeah.
You know, and then like, what is that? So it could be like the Old Testament stories that you heard in Sunday school or something. For me, I was like, made me think like, well, what was it? And I know I started reading a lot when I was young. And I mean, I remember the first book I cried at was The Black Stallion, which is by Walter Farley, but it was about this, you know, young boy who became stranded on this island with this beautiful, untamable horse, and then like what happened from there. And I feel like if I think about like how does that relate to my inner muse or my true queen, I do think like being able to do the impossible, I mean, is one thing. But I think also the thing is like there was an understanding between the horse and the boy, and so like that deep sense of understanding that a creature understood you uniquely. And then also that you had a unique thing that only you could do. Like at the, I don't want to give away if someone's going to read the book and they've never read it, but there's like at the end, it's like a unique thing only one person can do. And so there's something there I've never really thought about before about, you know, going for the impossible, not taking no for an answer, and just seeing how far you can get, but then also deep sense of like understanding and appreciation of being understood and providing that for another person. And then also what is your unique contribution, like the only thing that you can do, and are you doing that fully? I love that. I don't know if I've thought about that before.
Yeah, exactly. And while you were describing that, I recognize so much in you, of course, the wizard and the relationship that you have with your dog. So all that, and I can also feel while having this conversation, that's really lighthearted. That is kind of a lot nicer than God knows what the heavy stuff of life. Not that we neglect the heavy stuff, but being in touch with this part makes it possible.
Right.
Makes it possible in sometimes impossible situations.
Right. And I did like a lot of books with animals, a lot of books with magic, you know, just different things like that. So interesting. I love that added little inquiry, bonus inquiry to dialogue about what moves you. How do you know that inner muse or that true queen? And that's a great reminder for me just to be more connected to the true queen and that inner muse just today and this weekend as I go about my usual stuff.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Good. Awesome.
Okay, so for those of you watching either live or the recording, feel free to challenge yourself to be more connected to what really lights you up from the inside and see what happens if you come from that place over the next few days. Like I said, when I edit this recording, which will probably be in a couple days, you'll see some of these links appear that you can follow, as well as probably a couple of these questions I'll just put right there in the bottom so that people can answer them for themselves if they'd like to. So thank you, Andrea. Love it. Love our time together.
Yes, me too. Okay. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.